In this video, I will provide you with a few ideas you can use if you're interested in installing some type of an opening for storage access underneath a stairway that will be built like this. And this is the first one in a small series. I'm going to try and create a few different stairways to provide you with a few different openings and where those openings and why those openings might be better located in certain areas than others. So first off, let's go ahead and take a tour of the stairway. I want to provide you with the walls that are going to be non-load bearing, and that will be this area here. The rest of the walls in the stairway are going to be supporting some type of a load. And even though these wall studs are supporting the stairway, an engineer might not find them necessary. However, this wall it's going to be supporting the floor joist here and the upper part of the stairway. And these wall framing studs will also be supporting the floor framing and will be considered load-bearing walls. Along with this wall here, you can see where this wall here is supporting the landing and the top of the stairs. And if we go over to the other side, you can see where the joist for the landing are also being supported by the wall framing over here. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at the top wall. You can see where these stringers are going to be connecting to a ledger that is attached to this wall, along with the floor joist. Now, I don't have any joist in this area, and if your joists are running parallel to the wall, this might not be as big of a deal. However, if the joists are sitting on top of the wall, then it would be fair to assume that this wall here is going to be supporting a little more weight. So next up, let's go ahead and remove the wall framing studs here so that you don't get confused. These are going to be load-bearing studs. However, in most cases, these will not be. If you have a stairway that's really long and you remove the wall framing studs and you walk up the stairs and they are a little weak, then you might think about reinstalling them. Or at the very least, when you install your openings, you provide some type of support so that the stairway is not bouncing up and down as people walk up and down it. So here's one way you can frame an opening. And again, since I wouldn't consider this to be load bearing, I could simply frame something like this. And if you do end up with a situation where you want the baseboard to run through the opening or the bottom of the opening, then you could always build it up by adding one or more sill plates as another option. Take a look at it there, how this is going to connect to the stringer. And if you are going to use an area underneath the stairway for storage, then you might consider contacting your local building and safety department, because most storage areas underneath the stairway have to be fire rated, and that might require you to use Type X 5/8 drywall. And if you drywall, you might need to install some ceiling backing like we have here. And again, if you are going to run the base through your base trim, then you probably won't be removing the lower framing plate. However, if you are going to install a door, something with hinges, then you might need to remove the lower framing plate. Again, another option for your openings. And something else I like to do will be to run the framing stud down to the wood framed flooring like this to prevent this right here. This small piece right here often splits. So another thing to consider when you are doing something like this. And of course, the most common place to put a doorway in a stairway like this will be in the tallest wall. Or should I say, a wall that will allow some type of an opening and full height door. And to do this, you can simply add a header, some trimmers, and then cut the bottom plate so that you can remove that section of the sill plate. And make sure that this section and this section of the doorway is securely fastened to the floor framing. You do not want the wall to be moving when you are opening and closing the door. And of course, with this type of design, the existing ledger can remain attached to the wall because you can simply cut whatever studs you need to install the door header. And you could always do something like this if you need to make the opening a little wider. And what I did here was added a 1x4 instead of a 2x4. And even though I'm making this suggestion, this might not be something an engineer is going to want to see. So I would take into consideration the weight and the load above that might need to be sitting on top of a full-length trimmer. And if that's the case, you could always notch into or reframe this corner by turning the studs around or rotating them 90 degrees to create a corner like this over here. So another option you can consider. And you could always install another full-length stud if you want to, depending upon the price of lumber, of course, to fill this area right here and stop the header over here. For example, instead of having the header go over to this king stud, you would install another stud in here and then stop the header at that stud. In our next example, we will install a header that will be a little bit lower, and then we will build up the sill a little higher. And again, you can always build the sill up as high as you need to by adding more framing plates or filling this area in like you would, framing it like you would the bottom of a window, where you might have a upper sill plate here with studs underneath the sill plate, or studs in between the top of the bottom framing plate and the bottom of the door sill. And since this is a load-bearing wall, we are going to need a header in here, and in most cases a 4x4 should work. However, if you're not sure, go to a bigger header, a 4x6, a 4x8, or contact a structural engineer for more information about your project. And if you need to, you could always remove the sill plates. And again, if you need to, you could always remove the sill plate like we did on the other walls over here. And in our last example, we will raise the header a little higher, just in case you have a specific door size that needs to fit in this space. And keep in mind that by raising the header up, you're going to have a weak spot in the drywall on the other side. Now, this might not be that big of a deal. You might be able to get away with gluing the trim to this section of the drywall. However, that's not going to be the case if you move the header up a foot. And for those of you wondering why I'm providing this example, it's just to provide you, the viewer, with a little more information if you decide to do something like this. Just keep in mind that if the opening is too large, then you might need to replace the ledger with some type of a support beam to support the joist that we have here. And I'm not about to suggest that this is going to work here. Again, another reason why you might think twice about doing something like this instead of lowering the header to where the header can actually be attached to the ledger and provide you with the structural support that you need to frame your new storage opening. And hopefully this helps you with your project. If it does, let us know by hitting the thumbs up button or leaving a nice comment in the comment area.